Next item, Commissioners, is the request to execute the Public Works Board loan. And I'll start off with saying that we received this loan offer in mid-October, I believe, and needed to execute this within 6 months or loan offer is off the table. So we're rapidly approaching that date, and that is mid-April. And we've had quite a few briefings to take a look at. Well, things have been evolving. We've been looking at what the actual project is. So what does the total project cost look like and what are we building? We also have had updated financial analysis and reports from FCS Group to take a look at what this means long-term for our Belfair Sewer finances. And we are recommending at this time to accept the loan for $8 million. And we're also asking that Commissioners consider putting in place financial controls. I do want to be clear that from my perspective, we need to make a decision about the loan itself prior to the mid-April deadline. The implementing financial controls, while I and maybe our finance folks may think that's awesome to do at the same time, I want to be clear that you have an option on that it is not 100% necessary to implement those at this stage, but we don't want to lose track of it because these are the controls that our state auditor and that the Public Works Board will be looking at. State auditors, certainly during our annual audit, Public Works Board, when it comes time to execute the final loan, when the project's closed out, they'll be looking at what's our track record been. Did we increase our ERU rate? How many ERUs did we add each year to the system? So they'll be looking at that to determine what our final loan contract looks like on closeout. And I guess just to go back to what the purpose overall, so as you know, we've been working with Kennedy Jenks to update our general sewer plan, and this is done in partnership with the City of Bremerton and Port of Bremerton. And the City of Bremerton has very much affirmed that this is a project that is needed to serve their southern boundary of PSIC, and it's very important in maintaining NIC designation. So that review is coming up soon, and if the city has not demonstrated that they've made progress to facilitate growth and development of the NIC, then there's a potential that they could lose that very important designation. So from that perspective, this project and this effort is very important on a regional basis as well. The other thing that I think is important to consider regarding this loan is that, as you know, we've been using REIT and .09 funds to help with our current debt repayment. And anything we can do, and from my perspective, to help lighten that burden, to be able to free up those funds for other county purposes is a good thing. Because right now we're taking resources that could be applied elsewhere.
How does this do that?
By constructing a project and by bringing additional ERUs and additional rate revenues in, we could look at what the overall debt is and potentially look at debt restructuring in the future, or reducing what that need is for REIT or 09 funds. That's not a promise or a guarantee by any means, Commissioner. I understand that. It's kind of a bet, but without doing this, there is no, we have what we know, essentially. We've got what we know. The other piece is that by constructing a project, again, it could facilitate additional growth and development, could. And if that happens, then we've got, like any utility, additional ratepayers, and that helps to offset the impact. The more ratepayers you have, the better you are to stabilize a rate or keep a rate stabilized. So those are the two things that I think are very important to keep in mind when we're considering this loan. And again, the other option is to keep as we are, and then we know what that looks like. We're committed to our continued REIT and 09 contributions, and we are, we would not be enabling or helping facilitate the MEC development. Those are a couple of things that I think are important to consider. Richard, anything in terms of the rate, or, sorry, I've been
No.
yammering away here. Are there things that you would like to add?
I just see the opportunity right now that for Belfair itself at the water reclamation facility, the potential to use some of this $8 million loan to get it up to speed, since it's all dependent on that function. At that financing level, I think it's a good deal. I mean, really, I think it's a great deal. Otherwise, we're gonna have, I mean, right now, I got one anoxic pump out of 4 that runs, and it's running on a failed seal. We're in dire straits there as well. So how we get that money to get that up to speed any other way, I'm not sure. This is probably the least impacted way to get that back up to speed where it needs to be, to take care of all the deferred maintenance that's happened throughout its existence. It's not an easy thing.
Commissioner, you also asked for me to take a look at how else, I guess just timing, so I'll talk a bit about where we are on the overall design project. And we've had several new development proposals come in pre-apps and preparing to make applications. And if, for example, so I'll back up, our current sewer code has a provision for latecomer agreements. So if a developer were to come in now and say, I'm ready to go, I'm not waiting around for Mason County to finish their design and get some pipe in the ground, we're ready to go at this time, we as a condition for the development could say, here's what your trunk line needs to look like, and you're gonna be building that as a condition of your development. Then they could ask us to implement a latecomer agreement for that extra. And so that's a way for the developer to recapture what they overbuilt for the overall system. So that's one way to recapture that. I still have not run to ground the business about if they were to upfront and oversize, whether or not the county could participate in the oversizing of the materials. I still need to nail that down. But that would be another potential way to address, I guess, the oversizing issue and how that's divvied up between the county and a developer. So those were 2 items, Commissioner, that you had asked, I believe, last time. Also, last time we briefed, you were wondering about the rate increase and how that looked in comparing to neighboring communities, and how that may or may not impact our commercial property owners. And Richard did some analysis on that.
Richard, did you compare it by gallon or
No, let me, gosh, I know I got more of these.
Again, the reason why is 155 gallon ERU in comparison to ERUs with their surrounding areas.
Okay.
Another copy, Richard, no. Oh, okay.
No, I got another one. Okay, so I did City of Bremerton, City of Shelton, and West Sound Utility District and Port Orchard. And basically, I got from Belfair Water District what the current flows are, just to validate that we're charging them with, because we basically charge them based on ERUs that they typically use. So say Safeway, I think Safeway uses, it's like 26 ERUs. So it's whatever that base rate is, times 26, that's their monthly bill. So for Safeway I gotta back up. So City of Bremerton, City of Shelton, Port Orchard, they have a base rate and then it's charged on usage. And so I calculated out, this is how many gallons that Safeway uses, and then applied their rates to come up with what their charge would be. So let's say, of course, Mason County is the most expensive. Safeway currently in 2019 there's $2,544 a month. That's what their bill is. City of Shelton, it's $1,860. Bremerton, it's $1,150 or $55, and West Sound is $1,352. So basically, it's the economy of scale coming out at play there. You know, same thing for McDonald's. We're currently, what do I got here for their bill? I'm gonna have to look over McDonald's. I got theirs mixed up here. McDonald's is $988.80 currently. It's $797 in Shelton, $483 in Bremerton, $554 at Port Orchard. It's the same sort of thing, but the difference for us really is, so if they'd have ran based on cost, they'd have ran already, because it's, you know, significantly more expensive there. So if we applied the, what we want to bring it up to, based on this, that would be a $318 a month increase for Safeway, $123 for McDonald's, and $40 for Starbucks.
This is applying just the flat rate. What I believe we heard City of Bremerton say is that for the customers within the PSIC that would receive our service, they would also apply the factor similar to City of Shelton if they're providing water service in the UGA and not within the city boundaries, then there's an increased rate.
Right, this is all inside.
Exactly.
They
So
have an
this-
outside rate.
Yeah, so this is comparing just
Well,
flat,
and this
but
is
there would
closer-
be an
This
escalator.
is more accurate than what's been presented to me in the past, so I'm appreciative, because you did go by the gallons, and it makes a difference.
Yeah, yeah.
On some of the others. And they are moving closer, but we're by far a lot more expensive than, except for Shelton, but even then, you know, 2,800 versus 1,800 is a huge difference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
But
again,
at
this
least this
doesn't
is-
apply the
at least this is-
factor.
At least this is.
Yeah,
more accurate,
it is
And
what
I'm
it is.
appreciative.
Yeah,
And I'm appreciative, well, no, it's nice to have the real numbers, because then it is where it is, like you're
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
So it's a compliment. I thank you for giving me
oh, yeah.
stuff that apples to apples instead of apples, oranges, peaches, and bananas.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Believe me. This is more like broccoli.
Gotta eat your broccoli.
You got it. So, yeah, that's it right there. It's, like you say, it's gallon for gallon, what it would be.
Were there any questions on the budget impacts? I kind of distilled that in a very short little piece here, and we have not run cash flow projections.
Budget impact?
Just on the front page there, it just kind of identifies really
Yeah,
the highlights of the loan
yeah.
agreement itself, rather than exactly what the increase would be to
And
our.
did you look at all, and what I was talking to you about perhaps a utility district or something else for that area up there so they could pay for their own?
Yes, but I don't have an answer for that, Commissioner.
What is that?
Sure.
Can you?
Yeah. There's different types of, utility districts, industrial development districts and the like. If you put together a utility district, which they should have done with Belfair originally, but they didn't want to at the time, then the district, you can actually have the increase or the payment of the loan on the properties itself that are benefiting from it. Using $100, 10 properties, each one, would pay $1 a year for 10 years. And that would pay for the difference in the increase that they would get from the value increase in the properties as well. And with that, if that was an option or opportunity, I was more interested in some of this concept. But go ahead.
So in this case, since we have a loan, usually, and I used the term previously, a utility, a ULID, and that would be a way to finance construction and then allow for the people within the district to repay over time. In this case, we have a loan, and so we don't have the need for a ULID, but if I'm understanding the concept, what you're thinking, Commissioner, is that we would describe still a boundary that for those people that are served by this sewer extension, that they would have a different rate essentially.
Or a
consider
different
it a
hookup,
different.
or a different,
Right, something
or
that would,
a piece that's put on to their property tax. That can be done as well. So that they pay an extra $1 a year for $10. So that that investment goes into directly pays for that.
yeah. So what we
So what would that do to potential, so we know that this is essentially building a backbone
right.
kind of system. What would that do to the ability to have to stem out from there? And I mean, wouldn't that be adding an additional burden there that might delay or kind of stifle development?
Yeah, but it shouldn't be enough to work with stifle development. If that's the case, then we shouldn't be considering it in any way for ourselves. Because we can't, the system that we have already, I don't know if we're gonna go there yet. I don't wanna get on my soapbox yet unless it's time, sorry.
No, go for it.
I don't wanna step over anybody, I just wanna.
I'm all for the soapbox.
Okay.
Do it.
I've been sticking with this, trying and hoping to find an answer to be able to put things through. And 15 years ago, 12 years ago, right in there, the people in my community were told a lot of the same things that we're hearing right now, and we're talking about right now. It's for the future, it's for this, it's for that. Here we are, 10 years later, after it opened, and we're just now finally looking at our first real one that'll benefit, the first major one of a couple hundred units in an apartment complex in all those years. But the community was told all these things, and the burden was put on them. The county has been changed a little bit because we've absorbed some of that burden over these years, and it's been wonderful, and it's allowed us to survive out there, because the truth is if they put these costs on, the bread box of Mason County, which our sales tax comes from, would have been devastated. But the county has stepped up. Now, with that being said, I can't, and I hate to be so aggressively against something. I can't express how much I'm against even considering doing the same thing we did to them before. Again, the same promises are there, the same idea would go through, but we're talking about mainly one person, one property owner who I respect and I like. But that's where the greatest benefit would come. The county eventually would, or maybe would, but we may be talking 10 years again. I hope not. I think it would come faster than that. But right now, they can put septics up there. Because all that changed compared to when this happened all those years ago. This has changed to where now they can put septics, like transit is putting a septic in, that's part of the design. So these businesses still can come. And then eventually you can run a pipe to where businesses already exist. That's another option. But the idea of taking on and not doubling, but it's pretty close. I think I never got that number, but I think we're at, in the tens now for our debt on that system. And to put $8 million in debt on it, to go nowhere, to go over a piece of property that potentially will bring us the revenue, it's speculation. It is like building a spec home, except for we're not in the business of speculation. It is gonna make certain properties extremely valuable, but on the back of us. And if we're not here, there's no guarantee that that doesn't become a huge amount of money that's put on those people there. And I've gotta try and protect them. I don't wanna go to them and even talk about doing the same thing to them again that happened to them 10 years ago. With that being said, also, the idea of our 09 monies and our REIT, I appreciate you talking about taking a burden off. It's not taking a burden off, it's gonna put $400,000 of burden on, right? Is that the right? 50,000 per million. So that puts $400,000 of burden on. This community barely was able to withstand, and I'm one of the ones that was here after the fact. But the community was very mad every time we did anything, move money from REIT to pay for this sewer that they consider the Belfair Sewer. Even though Belfair never had anything to do with it, it's a county sewer, it's a Mason County sewer. The idea of taking more money out of REIT and stuff and not having that money for other projects, again, to me, does not make sense. Yes, there's a good possibility that this is gonna be beneficial, but there's also a huge risk involved. And what we're doing, again, is speculation, the same thing that was done before. If these businesses were up there, at least when they built the other sewer, they had businesses and everything already there. This time, there's nothing. This time, it is 100% pure speculation. Right now, we will currently pick up one that's up there that we're not gonna get now. That one apartment complex is already coming in here. So that one is not part of the new thing. So all I can say is this is one of those ones where I'm trying to say it as gently as I can, but you know, I have to stand against it with everything I have eventually, because I would see it as being a horrible thing to do to my community again, a second time, especially this time with nothing up there. And we're looking at how many years before it gets built out. 1 year you up on top of the hill, paying $100, $108 a month, isn't gonna cover 8 million. So we pick up over the next 10 years, we pick up 50. That's not gonna cover it. That covers one of the millions. So, sorry, as calm as I could with that soapbox, just please understand. This one is about as emotional and as deep in one of the reasons why I became a commissioner and who I am for my community that there is. And I wish that we were having this conversation without cameras today, because you know, this doesn't need to be a political thing. It doesn't need to be, it's just.
Yeah, I appreciate those comments. I don't view it as a political thing at all. I think it's a conversation about the work that we've done over the past 10 years to put ourselves in a position to capture legislative support for this project that's critical not only to Belfair, but also to our partners on the Kitsap side. It was why I voted for the initial capital budget request in 2017, which we got $500,000 out of. It's why I was supportive of the request we made in the last long legislative session that netted us the $2 million grant and the $8 million in loans from the Public Works Board. There were a lot of opportunities along the way to refine this, and we've done it even to the point where we were looking at putting pipe down Log Yard and a lift station down there so that there was additional benefit. And that is obviously not possible at this point, not because of us or not because of our unwillingness to try, but because of the potential development down there just is farther away than it might have been presented to us initially. We still are stubbing under, in this plan, under the roundabout. So it's not just benefiting one landowner. I know that has been a kind of consistent message from you, Commissioner, and I have to respectfully disagree. I think there are other property owners along Phase 1 that would benefit from this, and that would become customers of it. But let's look practically at this as well, given our current situation. We have a ticking clock in front of us to make this decision. I don't know when we will ever have an opportunity to even entertain a conversation around the kind of development Belfair needs at this rate again. I just don't know when that is, and I know that there's risk involved with it. We're working hard to take that risk and reduce it. They've come back a number of times with other iterations of this. The last iteration was $1 million less than the one before it, which is a real savings. We have financial commitments from the city of Bremerton that continue to be affirmed by the city of Bremerton. And so I don't know, and Commissioner Trask might have insight being on the Public Works Board as to what this would mean for our ability to go back and ask for resources in the future, whether that be debt reduction or to look at doing a project again up there. But on the other side of it too, it's getting more and more difficult for me to justify to my communities that we continue to subsidize Belfair at the rate we are. And there's no quick or easy way out of this. And it might mean that we are dedicating REIT and 09 longer term. But we have projects that have to happen in other parts of the county that our leverage is tied up in Belfair. Just the bottom line of that. Unless we can get Belfair to grow, our financial analysis says that your community would have to pay $350 a month to be sustainable. I have a hard time stomaching the $108, and I don't think we should entertain that. But I tell you, I don't want to go up there and have a conversation that goes back to where we were when I ran in 2016 and when we signed this deal, the first capital budget request in 2017, which said we're gonna force sewer down Old Belfair Highway in a customer grab, or that we're gonna raise your rates to $350 a month. That will kill Belfair. And so my support of this has been consistent, and it's been consistent because I can't support the status quo, which does not allow for the kind of growth and opportunity that we need to have in Belfair. And so for those reasons, I am still supportive of this proposal.
But the opportunities are still there, it's just not at this rate. If we don't do something today, we still can get loans, we still can go out for bonds. None of that changes. The difference is how much we pay for it, because this is a loan of 0.79. So all those opportunities are still there. It's just that they're there when we have something to actually connect to. And I appreciate the idea of the concept of you have to explain over the years about the REIT, because I have too, as you know, that's something that keeps coming up. We're talking about adding a whole other third more. So if we had a hard time before, how much easier is it when we're saying we're taking in more? And do we actually even have a full $400,000 in REIT and 09 that we can just cut out for the next 10, 20 years? Because that's what we're talking. Did you want to answer that? Because that wasn't a question.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So again, the difference here is opportunities. I get that, believe me. And I definitely don't want to do any of those other things either. But taking on more debt and on something that's not going to bring back the return for a long time when we already had done that, and I say we because none of us were here when that happened. None of us. But when those past commission took on that other debt that put us in this position in the first place, it makes no sense to go out and get a credit card to cover the other debts. That's what this would kind of be like. I understand that it would help us to get further, but it is going to benefit the one area. And when you're talking about housing and stuff like that, I want to see those houses. But at the same time, developers pay their own. I'm not even saying that we don't do things. I think that we should, but it has to be in some type of combination with a utility district or an agreement with the property owner. We haven't done it. Whatever the reasons are, we have a lot of things going on in the departments. We haven't done it. So now we're sitting here in a situation where take the loan or not take the loan. If that's what it is, without the benefits, without anything that we're gonna get back on it, then I don't see how we can take the loan. How do you take $8 million in debt and say, because we wanna have something there someday? We still have to pay for it now. We're talking $400,000 a year, extra.
Do we need to take the full 8 million?
No.
No, we do not. And actually, how this works is that you would accept the $8 million, but it's basically a line of credit. And you
Yeah, I thought we
draw,
asked about that. I thought you said,
You draw on it as you need
yeah,
it.
well,
Exactly.
and we asked about that the last time. I thought we were told that that's not how we can do it, that we have to take the.
No, I think.
Or we can take
I think
four,
I think
or
the
we can
the confusion is, we accept the
right.
we ask for the $8 million. And then if we we don't even have to use the entire amount, but we have the $8 million to help us build the infrastructure, to help, not just Belfair, but Mason County, in my opinion. We're helping build that infrastructure where we can employ more people, grow the businesses. As you can tell, I support it 100%, but being on the Public Works Board has given me a lot of insight, I guess. They are so excited about seeing the direction that Mason County is going. And this is one of the projects that they've shown to all the legislators and to the governor. And everybody is so excited about this project because they do see how it's going to help Mason County. And yeah, so you don't have to take the entire amount. I'm going off on tangent, I know, but you don't have to take the entire amount. We've been approved for $8 million, but you don't have to use the entire amount.
No,
Think
but the
of
line
it-
of credit concept, because we talked also about 4 million and stuff, but the
Which
line of
is-
credit is,
Exactly. So think of it like your construction loan when you're building a home, essentially. You've got your construction loan, you do your business, so the bank says, hey, you can build a $300,000 home. Turns out it's only $250,000. Then at the end of your project, they write the final mortgage agreement for the $250,000. Public Works Board loan is very similar. They'll say, commissioners, you've got $8 million to play with. We are saying, we are projecting that our project's really around 4.5. If we add a safety factor of 30%, because we're still in the preliminary phases here, then that's $6 million at the most. But if you remember, Gordon was looking at around the $4.5 million, and that really was, I believe, around 260,000 additional debt, not the 400,000.
yeah. No, the 4 was
And then
based
it
on
was-
the 8. Now, I was actually trying to be mellow, because I know it's more than that, what I'm saying. I'm just
Yes.
saying that,
Yes.
okay.
And I think the other point that I think is worth remembering here is Richard's point about how there are other elements of the facility itself that need improved regardless, and it would be next to impossible to do that without, whether we want to do the extension or not, these things are gonna need to happen in order to keep the plant functional
And actually,
and get
it's
that,
$25,000.
and get that
just
redundancy
for-
that we need.
So what does that look like if we end up a year from now or 2 years from now and we don't take any of the money?
Well, what will happen is that, and we're gonna truck along actually on our grant for a period of time. We will not be drawing on this loan for about a year. We'll start taking, it'll be that long before we're starting to tap into the loan. And then at that point, we'll be starting construction. And commissioners will have a bid before them about here's what the bid is. And you will look at it and say, all right, well, we thought our construction bid was gonna be about 4.5 million, and Public Works, you're telling us it's 6. What can we do different? Or maybe the bid comes back in at 4. So, sorry, I'm just kind of
Well, actually, no,
describing sequencing.
you're scaring the
about-
hell out of me, because I was there for the other one when that happened, and it did not go that way.
No.
It started at 24 million, became a 50, $7 million plan.
I guess
That's what I'm saying, that's what
What I'm describing though, Commissioner, is that you do have additional checkpoints or go or no-go decisions. So even though if you say, yes, let's accept this loan, there are many other decision points in the coming years about, all right, here's really what the bid is. Do we now authorize construction in this amount, or does that look different? And
Or
you have-
conceivably, you could work on your ULIT idea.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
and that's what I'm, because I'm
Yes.
just being honest with you guys, this one is so big to me, this is where
Yeah.
the flag that I post where I die on the hill, you know, it's one of those, it's that bad
Yeah.
for me. I'm trying everything not to be that way, and I don't think I've ever done that since I've ever been here, to where I've said that, Tim and any of our battles or anything like that, but that's how much I feel about this one. But I want us to have our opportunities. I do want us to go there. The dangers of doing it this way and just doing it free for somebody to get up there is just too high, and the payment is too high. If we can be sure there's another decision point, that this isn't the time that I have to fight, I guess is what I'm saying, that we can still consider to work together, it's not doing it, then I'm.
The way I view this, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is this essentially reserves that money for us so that we don't lose it. So that when the legislature goes into special session later this year and they're looking for money to pull down in coronavirus
Right.
That's not
response,
their
Right.
people.
and they wanna do other projects with it, that we don't lose our line in the queue, or spot in the queue.
Right.
Correct.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And, I mean, if I don't wanna walk away from that.
So let me ask, what can we do? Is there anything you can help me with here? We may not be here. There's a pocket of $8 million that somebody else will drop it right on them. That's what I worry about also.
So if you're not here, the person that is sitting in your chair will have that responsibility, because he still has to answer to his constituents.
It doesn't
His or
matter.
her constituents.
No, but that's not what I'm talking about. It's still my decision that made that happen. I don't care, I meant in general, if somebody can't stop it or whatever. You know, gosh, I don't think I've ever tried to bring people into the room and do anything like that. But this is one of those times where it is that kind of an issue. And, you know, I don't wanna set it up for somebody else to do that to them. That's, for me, that'd be pretty chicken, you know.
And I didn't mean it like that.
Huh?
I didn't mean it like that, just so you know.
Actually, I didn't take it the way I'd even said it to you, no. No, sorry. I just meant for myself, I couldn't do that. If I did that, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, is what I'm saying. Not that you think that. What about the idea, you know, of what we had talked about before, of a smaller amount of that 8 million, and the risk that goes with that?
Well, wouldn't we be doing that anyway? I mean, it's,
I don't know, because we still have an 8 million they could draw on. That's what I'm talking about.
But those are, you have the breaks, you have the control on what the draw is, yes.
so, I wanna put words in your mouth. Well, assuming that you're not back in January of '21
Yeah.
is where you're concerned. I mean, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but I think that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, and even in 4 years, if that's when it gets dropped on, but
Mhm.
that's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If I decide, you know, there's a lot going on, but aside from that, if I'm not here, yeah.
Well, I think there would still be ways that we could build in those stop gaps throughout it. We would just have to, we can't figure that out until we have some willingness to, I mean, take the,
Right.
give our letter to the Public Works Board. I'm sure that, I don't know, have you any thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things that we identified, and I don't know if this gets at your concern, Randy, but having financial controls and having quarterly reports to commissioners about how many ERUs we've added during this interim, what is our actual draw, what is our position, what's our repayment, basically a financial report and also a development report. So we can continually be tracking and saying, are we on track? Were our assumptions
And-
right? Are they not right?
You and I talked
What do
about
we
that
need to adjust
the
to
other
make
day.
sure we're on track?
And what all that is somebody telling you that this is where you should be, but when you're not there, that don't help you one little bit. Because you know this is where you should be, does not make those developments happen, it does not make the dollars come in.
I guess, you know, again, I really understand where you're trying to get with this, but I don't understand how, when you get those I mean, it's a pretty big assumption to make that whoever takes, you know, over when you and I are gone, would not have the wherewithal to see those, I mean, that's a pretty big assumption to make.
And they still have to report to the Public Works Board
Actually,
too.
I'm gonna tell you how it's not. When I first got elected, I sat in here and we had this big plan. And I tried to get information before I ran. That's one of the reasons why I ended up running. What was our debt? What was our income monthly? You know, what was our debt payment and such? And what was our maintenance operation? Tried everything to get it. The public tried to get it and they never did. When we first got elected, I had a different director at the time. I tried to get it and I couldn't. I finally, literally, was one of those times where I said, listen, go stand on the tables, you gotta get me this now. So he came to me and he finally said, okay, I got it. So we sat down that Wednesday and he started showing it out. And I said, that's not what I want. I'm asking you, maintenance and operation, debt repayment, how much do we get in? And at that point, this is the director and everything, and we're around, he literally went, it's this much for maintenance, this much for debt repayment, and this much when we come in, he sits back and goes, oh shit, I'm not kidding you. That was the reality. He didn't realize that nobody, because formulas are great, but that's not the true reality of what the impact is. Some things are a lot simpler. So yeah, no, it does happen. It happened right here.
That's staff, but I'm saying,
Well, the commissioners are, to be honest with you, nothing personal about us. I trust, you know, the knowledge of staff way above us. So if our staff has that,
Facts, you
the
need
commission didn't have it
accurate
either.
facts to help with your decisions, for
No,
sure.
well, no, even with all of it. I know, I'm worried. We put that too much out there, it's like candy. You have money out there, just like now, we're talking about it now, just because it's there. We don't actually have a project that we have to get it to right now. We could get a loan some other day at 2%. You know, right now, it's gonna be dropping like that for us to get our own loans like that, if we had an opportunity, or our own
And my concern is,
bond.
because I see how the money is dwindling to the Public Works account, Public Works Board. The legislature keeps stripping money away from Public Works and putting it in different areas. My fear is that if we do not accept this now, it'll be gone. And then how do we help Mason County? How do we help Belfair grow?
By going out for a bond, by going out for USDA loan, by going out, all that still doesn't go away. This was the legislative offer and it's appreciated. The money was more appreciated. This is appreciated. But at the same time, just because we're offered something doesn't mean we should take it.
can I ask you, and I'm gonna be blunt,
Please.
where were these thoughts over at least the past month, but as we have been going out for this, we had this offer back last summer.
I have said this over and over again.
This is the first time,
No,
Commissioner, that I'm hearing about USDA loans.
I have,
other-
remember, we've had the arguments about even trying to go with, you know, at 4 million. I've had issues with all the other, all the aspects of it. As for the loans and the grants, that part, the thing you said was, we won't have this opportunity. So that's a different question that was ever asked in the past.
Well,
My answer today is, those opportunities are still there, it's just a different price mark.
Well, you won't have this opportunity.
No, but, well,
And so, but I mean, are you saying that you believe there will be better opportunities for
well,
financing?
I always believe that we can get more grant and stuff as the years go on, as we've done it in the past. We were able to do it 85%, where this one will not be on the project itself. And it still puts us in that huge debt. To not get any of this as grant, maybe in the future we could, but again, that's a roll of the dice, that's a risk. Every time we're taking a risk, where's our benefit? You know, the benefit is eventually we may get to a point to where we get on a positive, We've been waiting for that now for 10 years in Belfair. And it may come tomorrow, but right now, we haven't even overcome the first one. The first one still has its $10 million backwards. And it's those people that are being blamed for it, so to speak, even though they had nothing to do with it. The same thing would be here. If it gets put on them again, it's the exact same thing happening, except for this time I'm sitting in the chair. That's, that's the thing. I assure you, all the people that did it the first time thought they were doing a good thing. You know, I had those arguments in my community. Tim did not think he was hurting my community. He truly believed he was saving them. And so did Linda, and so did Ross. But that's not what the reality was. The numbers didn't add up. It was still a risk. It was not a good financial purchase, so to speak. Will it be in 20 years or 30 years? Maybe. But right now, we're still dealing with it. And to get us out of that trouble, I want to go to Kitsap, but to get us out of that trouble, right now, we don't have anything Kitsap to hook up to either. You know, this is just to spend the money to go up a hill and hope that somebody comes in. And if you realize, just to pay for 1 million, we need 50 ERUs. Currently, right now, we have about 411 in all of Belfair, all of it. And so we need 50 for 1 million.
Commissioners, if I could step back, your point about the ability to develop on septic at this time. So let's say that nothing, that we, I think your point was that development could still occur without this additional sewer investment.
Yeah, there's a cost.
So my concern about that is that even though you can have that happen, particularly on residential, you're taking up more space for your on-site and your septic and your reserve, and we're not developing at the density that maximizes our ERUs for the overall system. And you're not gonna be able to cost effectively come in and redevelop that area. And that to me is a potential threat for long-term economic viability as well, because you're not maximizing your density and you're not getting your maximum number of ERUs
But there's a
that could
cost for
connect.
that, and the cost is $8 million. The cost is $400,000 a year out of the rest of the county, and their ability to use it for other infrastructure things for the whole county. There's that cost for that optimization, you know, can be also spread out, and should be, before we're even looking at taking money like this, over the people that have that property to develop. Whether it be a utility district, or whether it be an agreement with them for construction or something. But that's when that stuff should come in. Even if in 10 years, there's buildings up there and then we bring it up there so they can maximize the rest of it. But to do it early and to throw 8 million out as a seed out there when we're this much in debt now, on the same project, in the same place, where, you know, we're talking about whether they can handle 108. And eventually, again, nothing about you guys, because you weren't here for any of that. I actually, when I first came in, there was talks about charging the full amount. So you may not be here, I may not be here, and somebody else may have a different perspective, and that's scary as heck. I don't want to put us in a position where they have that different perspective, or that different opportunity.
I'll say this, to that point, you've had the opportunity to work with now 4 different commissioners in your time here. And at no point, and I know Terry and Tim didn't raise it to the level that it should be at based on the financial analysis. I have not entertained that idea. I just said I'm uncomfortable with the 108. And I won't speak for Commissioner Trask, but I'm not sure that you have yet worked with a commissioner who has actually, but I don't know how we make it up there unless we get more pipe in the ground and we get more connections.
So the sewer was built in what year?
2012 was the
Completion
date.
Yeah.
And it was built because they knew that growth was going to come, right?
They were told at the time a difference between 7% and 14%.
And so I do believe that there's going to be growth there. And I do believe that we have to do something to help that growth we have to put in the infrastructure. I mean, that's part of a county's responsibilities to help businesses grow and to build infrastructure. I just see this as the perfect opportunity to really help, to help Mason County, to help Belfair. And also Bremerton, that's in the part of Bremerton. They want to be a part of this too. So I think, I don't know, I think this is the perfect opportunity. It's the perfect time.
Well, with all due respect,
And
let
if
me
we
ask
don't do it now, when?
and I told you could do it at any time at a different cost.
Yeah, but it
with-
hasn't been done since,
That's because it doesn't pencil, and it shouldn't
well, and
be
if it
done.
doesn't pencil,
Then you don't do it. It's the
then
risk of the
then the Mason County is gonna be paying for it forever.
Actually, hopefully they get it paid off. That's been the whole idea that we've been doing. But by taking on more debt, it extends out how much and how long it takes to get paid off. Again, the same things that you said, with all due respect, are the same things they said before. And it hasn't changed. We're hoping, yes, but it's not there. There is no big one. We're finally getting one in 12 years, or not, it's more than that, in 10 years, but they started earlier than that, trying to bring stuff in. One big project. And again, it's putting it on those people, whether we like it or not, unless we want to take this money and put it under a debt completely on the side of it. I'm open to that.
What does that mean?
What that means, like, if we were to take a bond as a county or anything, but when you take it and you put it underneath that specific utility, that utility is responsible for the paying back of it. And that's where the pressure will come in the future. You know, we're lucky, we're getting away with a few things, we're kind of lucky. RCW says you have to pay for maintenance and debt out of the system. That's one of the things they've had issues with, but we're doing it through the 09 because it is an allowed use, but it's not a preferred use. We're doing it out of reach. Okay, they're allowed, but it's not a preferred. That's the same thing we're talking about doing here. Google thinks I'm asking them to talk.
Hey, Google.
Yeah. You know what's funny is up until like 3-4 months ago, it never did it once. Now it's doing it all the time.
I think we also have to look at the fact that we've got now the freight corridor going in too. So that's opening up a lot more opportunity for people in that area also. So I think we have more benefits now than you did in the past.
Definitely lots of synergy.
Right. Right.
Well, and I think that's a good point. You know, this would be a small part of a nearly $100 million investment in your community. And, you know, there's the roundabout, there's Mason Transit, there's the freight corridor. This would be a component of that. We know we've lost out on some big opportunities because we haven't done everything to put ourselves in a position to capture those opportunities. And that's why Amazon is, in part, that's why Amazon is going to Bremerton and not Belfair. And, you know, I get it, they're no good, I mean, this is possibly the best of the worst, you know?
And I guess that's where we disagree. I don't think it's the best of the worst. Actually, paying our bill now is still beneficial. Continuing to pay down the debt and not putting us in more debt or putting more risk on the people of North Mason and the county is a better option. I want this, but I want to see that there's something that's gonna pay for it. You know, to take this chance with nothing on the hope, like they did in 2011 when they were telling us down there. It's just not true. You know, yes, it could happen, but boy, we're sure gambling a lot of money with a lot of people's future. And I know that is our job, but it didn't work the first time, so let's do it again.
Do you think do you think anything has changed to the positive since the last time a decision like this was
Yes.
made?
Yes, I do. Well, not for their decision.
Right. But do you see any
But to be
situational
able-
differences?
To be able to move up there and stuff like that, as I had said in our past meetings, I would be supportive of working in combination with property owners and stuff like that. Taking the whole full burden and doing it all for them is not appropriate in my opinion. If we were to even do it as a utility district, I think that the growth could come. If we were able to pick up, we have an opportunity that maybe in the future still, because we haven't made those deals yet, to pick up from the Kitsap side as well. But all these things, we're doing all this and taking, without those agreements, without those options yet, there's still just a hope.
Well, I'll tell you this, I don't think you get an agreement with Kitsap unless you see it move any pipe north. I mean, I don't think, I think that opportunity goes away real quick.
But that would be the idea is, if we come north, what is our agreement? That's how we would build it together.
And, you know, and part of the other thing was, you know, we looked at it over and over and came up with a phased approach that allowed us to capture the benefit first, while still maintaining the relationship with the port and city of Bremerton so that they could be in position to capture it down the line. I mean, I really think that as far as previous decisions go, look, I mean, I wasn't in the room and I can't get inside their heads, but we have gone around and around and looked at multiple, you know, iterations of this to the point where they found a way to take $1 million off of the project. And I just think it would be a major setback for us to push all that work aside and not try to capture this now. And I understand, again, if you're a no, I get that. I'm not sitting here to try and convince you to change your mind, because you've been at this a long time. And I know that you've, you know, as you said earlier, this is kind of what spurred you on to run for commissioner in the first place. I can tell you, when I ran in 16, I talked about this quite a bit, and this is the exact plan that I put forward when I ran in 16. So I've tried to be as consistent as I can in looking for those opportunities. So I'm not trying to change your mind. I will, even though if
I see this, we're working together trying
yeah,
to.
and and if you're a no, I might disagree with you, but I don't. God bless it. You know, you have a position to represent, and that's fine. But I'll say this: if we don't move forward with this, I can't support doing the planned action EIS. Because I can't see putting money into that without having the infrastructure to go with it.
But again, I want the infrastructure, but I think that it has to be a combination of the people that have the property and the taxpayers of Mason County, not just the taxpayers.
Can you walk me through why you think the property owners up there would not have to make any investment in order to get their parcels sewered? Is that what you're saying, that we would be bearing the entire burden and that they would have to make no investment on their own side to get it stemmed out and
The only
lateraled out?
investment they would make would be literally the hookup, you know, the charge for hookup, and then of course the monthly. But again, first we're doing it, and we're increasing these values exponentially on our back doing it, and there's nothing there yet. Again, it just doesn't make sense. I was with you when you were running, and I completely agree, and I thought the same thing, and I said the same thing. But that doesn't mean that this is the answer, that the county paying all the money to do it is the answer. The answer, even back then, was working with the property owners and working with the city of Bremerton, and as a team, putting all these things together. Not just Mason County dropping all the money, and taking on all the debt, and putting the Belfair system in an even greater risk than it is now. Because it's at risk at all times. It's not running. So to take on more debt to do it may be fine today for a few days, but it eventually has to be paid for. And to pay for that, you know, as I said, we need 50 new ERUs for every single million that we do. And it's actually probably, what, 55? If you cover everything in, but either way, it's still, just using the 50, that's a lot compared to how many we've had. We've had approximately, actually when we first built, when they first built, it went backwards. They had all this idea it was gonna go forward, but it went backwards. The ERU rate, amount of people who had ERUs dropped by a lot.
And a lot of them stayed with their septics, right?
No, they couldn't stay with their septics. We lost businesses, we lost, and people just abandoned buildings even, and so the buildings went away. Then that leveled out, and then we've been picking up a few here and there, but it's not very much, you know, unless you get a Safeway or something, Starbucks, a nice big building, what is that, 3 ERUs?
Yeah,
Okay, so,
3.4.
yeah. That's what we're talking about, and if we're talking about coming up with, you know, hundreds and hundreds,
We're talking 28 ERUs per year through 2034
Is
is
your
what is
projection.
needed.
how is that what was needed? That's not
It was
possible.
like 178
Yeah.
needed ERUs total to cover the debt cost of that project.
Oh, that's just cover for where we are now, for what we've already paid? Because I think you're looking at something different. Right now, when they came out here, they gave us our numbers, your guy that's sitting there told us it was 50,000 per million.
The updated financial report shows ERUs needed to cover O&M and new debt service by 2034. 28 ERUs.
That's not possible.
And that
We've
was,
got a mistake there, that's, 2,800, that's $3,000 a month.
we would need to add 770 ERUs total by the end of the planning period.
Well, that makes, see,
By the end of
that's,
the planning period.
okay, but that's the
So
number,
stretching it out,
not the
What's the end of the
28.
planning period?
2034.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, if all we needed was 28, I'm down, but I can tell you, I know the simple math tells you that's not even, that wouldn't even get us close to even help us in Belfair for what we have if we didn't do anything. So, just so we can go forward, you know, I understand where you guys come from, I have to think about where I'm at on it, and, you know, how to deal with it myself and all. Because right now, at this point, especially if we're still looking at taking on the whole thing, then I don't see any protections for my community at all.
Well, and I know I keep coming back to this, but it says right here, any unused funds will be de-obligated. So we're approved for $8 million, but we don't have to use that entire $8 million.
Can you just define, like, this is only what this money can be used for? And then once you've completed
Once
that,
we,
you say that it's
once you do the
deobligated.
loan, yeah, I mean, if we commit to the loan,
Yes,
it will
I'll say
be
it's already
just for
defined.
the sewer
Yeah.
project, yeah, completely
Yeah, it's
defined
defined.
already.
I mean, like I
But-
said, if it's 4.5 million, and so there's, just say it's 5 million, there's 3 million left over,
Right,
how do you
Then if
keep
that's-
that from
if-
being?
It's,
for
it's,
being used, because the Public Works Board they audit these things all the time.
right,
And so they're gonna keep you honest.
Right.
yeah, we have quarterly reporting,
Yeah.
they're monitoring and tracking what all of our expenditures are. Here was the scope of work, here was the budget,
But that
here's
doesn't
what
help us
our.
keep us from spending 8 million, just because we report what it is. Just-
Well, that's what I
as
was
long as
wondering,
it's-
is
Yeah, no,
is
I,
there anything
yeah.
in there that,
And that's what I'd feel a lot more comfortable if there was, but right now, there isn't.
Well, it can only be used for the sewer. Are you saying that
construction
we
of
could
the
use
sewer
it for
could-
something
no.
else?
Well, if we
But
could.
we can't.
No, as I say, if we could, that'd be nice. I asked
Yeah.
before for us to look at that, at doing off some debt
Exactly, and they said
payment,
no,
and they said no.
right.
Because that would
It
have been
is just for
wonderful.
the building, for building the infrastructure and to improve what needs.
So
to be
if, as an example, if we put everything together and we put our bid package out, and it comes back and it's, you know, the 4.5 million or whatever,
Mhm.
I mean, can we then truncate it at that point and shut the valve off and say we're, you know, for the contingency, we'll take 5? And then that 3 million is de-obligated at that, can we do it at that point?
No, I think it has to be at the completion of the project.
Yes, that's my understanding.
Right. But if you get the bid in for 4.5 million, and, I mean, that's what you're gonna be, that's what the loan amount will be, is for the 4.5 million.
Can we do an internal resolution that binds us to that outside of?
Can we do an internal resolution that would make this an internal loan on the county and not on the actual utility itself?
I don't think that the Public Works Board would approve that.
Well, if we still say it's going to that, the only difference is our entity that we're putting it on. Once it's put under the utility, it must be paid for by that specific one. Russellwood cannot pay for it, for Belfairs. North Bay cannot pay for Belfairs. If it is done as a county thing, then it can be done however we need to. And it does not put the burden directly on
Can you
Belfair.
check on that? Just call Connie and maybe.
I need to make sure I understand.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can tell you don't understand.
No,
So-
because
so-
I think what I,
So the loan is taken specifically by Mason County itself, but not as the Belfair wastewater treatment system. It's taken strictly only for the purpose of still doing that. You can put money into a system, you just can't, once you take a loan, you take a debt on it, you have to be able to, that's still part of what you have to be able to charge eventually. I'll sit and work with you afterwards. I can tell you one thing, if that was the
I think
case.
that's the way it's written.
No, it goes, once it goes to the utility, we've been through that before. That's where the problem is. Once it becomes part of the utility itself, it is stuck in the utility.
So Commissioner, are you suggesting just general county debt?
Yes,
Okay.
that, thank you for this, just simplifying it out.
Right.
Which would make it a current expense obligation if the
Yes.
sewer,
Yes,
but financially, I'm not
which
sure
it,
how that.
which it already is a current debt. If the
Yeah,
system
right.
complete, no, but it doesn't matter. It's still, if you put it into the actual utility, it is those utility payers that are still on the hook. But if that thing ever defaulted, the county's still on the hook.
Right.
Is
But
that,
they
a-
put it on them because.
is that a decision that would impede sending our letter of intent to Public Works Board?
I believe so. I don't know that we would be able to sort this out and have a revision to the contract.
Well, it may
and
not have to be a
provide-
revision. The question is can we?
That would be to a treasurer, our debt, I mean, I know we're overall county-wise at a good place, but
Yes.
that's our debt policy, treasurer.
Mhm.
Even
I mean, is that-
if it was your intent, if you guys told me that if it's allowed, and they say it's allowed, and it's gonna take us time to go through that to actually get it finalized, I'm still gonna be on board. If that was the issue, because it has to go through the finance committee, it has to, all those other things.
Is it, I mean, is that not just six of one, half a dozen of the other? Since, I mean, how
I'm not
materially, what would that change for you? I mean, you're,
A lot, because when it's on the utility, when all hell breaks loose, when anything goes bad, it has to go back on the ratepayer. It has to. If we take the debt on ourselves, the only way, a county can't bankrupt, as you know. And so that's why that never would happen that way, but, legitimately, we're still responsible for it as the cosigner will say. But the district, the utility district is the one that has to carry the burden if something comes down upon them. Unless we did it this other way. And it may be nothing to it, actually, if, depending on the verbiage, if they will allow us to do it, but we still have to spend it the same way. That doesn't change, you still have to spend.
Right.
I'm still not comfortable with, I still would rather have partnerships, I'd still rather have all those other things, but at least that would take the heavy burden or extra risk off of the community. And that system.
I think that the current loan agreement already takes that risk off of the community, but we'll double check with the
in what way?
Public Works Board. Because it already says that the county is on the hook.
The county's
One way or the
responsible for
other.
paying it off.
Yeah, but I
Exactly.
think it might be how we put it in, that's what I'm saying. If we're allowed to put it in as general fund debt instead of the other debt, that's a whole different animal.
Right, so,
It
So-
doesn't specify.
no, it doesn't.
And that's why
It
I'm
doesn't.
saying-
So I
It
think,
doesn't
I think
specify.
that
So
would be
it
up
may
to
be
us.
okay.
That would be
Right.
up to us, as to
Exactly.
how we determine where that,
Yeah.
the loan is, but as far as Public Works goes,
Right.
I
they
would-
just want a commitment from the county.
I would think that that's correct, but
Yes.
still probably wanna just double check, just, because if it has to,
Yeah.
the checks have to be made to
Because
the utility.
with all the other loans that we worked on as the board, it's either the city, it's the port, it's the county, it's,
Yeah.
whatever special district, it's their responsibility to pay it back regardless of how they pay it back.
Well, again, I would feel a lot more comfortable, and I still have my same concerns, I still would like to see us work partnerships, I still would rather, because I still think that's the right thing to do, still. But at least this would take that.
Well, and I don't think this gets in the way of any of those conversations. I think we would need to make an investment, period, and we can't do it unless we move forward with a letter of intent to the Public Works Board. I mean, I don't see it as being mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
You'd still have to identify how you're going to pay it back, whether it's gonna be a combo of REIT 1.09 rate increase, or leave the rates where they are. The county, because it's still the county's responsibility, because I know even revenue bonds, if it defaults on that, it's still our obligation.
And that may be where the verbiage is then. But again, I would feel, it's still not perfect by a long shot, but at least it's, the threat to the community is alleviated a lot.
Can we get Jen to weigh in on that, maybe? Too?
Yeah, I think that this definitely is a general debt to the county. That's how I read it, but I'll double check
Please.
on that. And, I mean, yeah, right now, we're already subsidizing with .09.
Yep.
And
And as you know, they don't like it.
And probably
State.
going to be at some point with general fund money if we continue on like we're doing. I mean, we're only bringing in $96 per ERU. We have 416 ERUs, that's 400 and some thousand per year. The annual O&M costs are 600 and something. So, I mean, it is a huge risk, but I mean, reading this plan, it sounds doable. In the past.
She's watching upstairs, this is funny.
Good job, Lisa.
We sent the treasurer's bat signal up.
So, looking at the contract, there's nothing that says it's a debt of the sewer. It is a county general debt. You would have to determine at some point in time how you want to pay that debt back. So if you take it on, it is a county current expense debt unless otherwise noted. As are most of the loans for Belfair. So it's not any different than that. If that's,
Very good,
if you have other questions, but that was the one you were asking, and I just wanted to make sure that the issue is that currently, unless you specify you're going to pay it back, the sewer revenues is a county debt.
Seems, I don't know, that helps,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
at least with clarity there, so.
I'm glad you were watching.
It's an important discussion.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Whenever I see something from home, I think it's grandma's down again. She goes down. Sorry about
So, do you have any, I mean, does that clarify?
That does, and as long as we make sure that it's not designated as the utility, and the utility is responsible for the complete payback of that, then that helps me a lot.
it's a decision, obviously, the board can make
That's
it
a
any
board.
time, but to sign this contract and get it started, you don't have to have that decision unless,
Well,
That's the other
I know.
thing.
that Commissioner Netherland is asking for that, but what I'm saying is, there's nothing in that contract that says it is at this
Yeah.
point in time.
and if
Unless
you guys are
designate
saying
it.
that, what you didn't say yet, I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but if you would consider that as making sure that it's on the county obligation.
Well, I think it's already, the decision's already made for us. I think what the treasurer is saying is that it is general county debt.
But there's a trigger that puts it on there if we chose.
If you,
by putting-
if the board
It's a
votes to repay it, I mean, if you pass a
So that-
resolution that
that's what I'm
says
saying.
you're going to repay it
Well,
in
have we
some other
ever,
form,
but we haven't.
you
with
have
the
not
current-
done that in the past.
No, with the current debt, they put it on the utility.
You're paying it out of that fund, but
It's transfers in.
you're transferring money in to cover it.
Okay, well, I know some, I know that we talked with USDA, and that was on the sewer system.
That might be a
Generally,
federal-
when you
Yeah.
go, this is a loan, this is not a bond, so generally when you go out for a bond with USDA or out to the public for one, they wanna know how you're going to repay it. And we have them in a couple different ways. And even, you can say it's paid by sewer revenue, but if the sewer revenue doesn't cover it, then you're gonna back it up with your general obligation debt. They're all general obligation bonds. So, it really doesn't, I mean, the intent was for those to pay them back with the sewer debt. That's what the intent was at the time, but that's not what's currently happening in full.
That is, I would be willing to take the same approach to this as we have been with what's currently in place. I don't see any need to change and burden, I mean, it's,
Just keep it as a county, is that what you
yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it's being explained to me. We're doing it as transfers in. Currently, I wouldn't see any need to change our practice. If you recall, what Commissioner Drexler had wanted to do, a couple of years ago was in some way memorialize that in an effort to kind of address some of the state audit issues that have come forward. So I mean, this has been something that's been on the table for quite a while. So I have no problem with keeping that part of it in place.
But you comfortable with keeping it as a county and not a utility?
Absolutely. If you don't specify a fund that you're gonna cover it from .09 or from REIT 2, it's a current expense obligation and you're gonna have to budget for it. So just in the process, you're gonna have to continue to make sure that wherever that funding is coming from, whether it's just the county current expense fund or you're doing some sort of this fund, this fund, this fund, that is budgeted accordingly to make those payments. And I think what I was seeing kind of from the cover letter and some of the other things is that they wanted that memorialized in some way. So, but it doesn't have to be, I think you just need to do it outside of approving whether you're going to accept the money or not.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, and I think that's more or less in keeping with current practice, so I'm fine with that.
Absolutely.
Good. Thank you.
You don't wanna hang out? You don't wanna hang out?
I've been hanging out upstairs listening. I'll run back down if you need me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Better?
A lot.
Yeah.
Still have issues with that stuff and the dangers of even that kind of investment stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be, it's still gonna, this is all new living thing, but I don't think I'm gonna be fighting it. I think I'm gonna be, and you know me, if I'm not fighting it, I'll probably stand with you as I always do. That's how I do things, so. I just hate to say that right this second, but I'm right now, the pressure seems a lot different. It's a lot better on my community, the safety that brings. And those businesses that are giving us all that money for taxes.
So, and then the other part of it that I think I would like to see stricken from it is the rate increase at this point. I think let's just focus on moving forward with the Public Works Board as it is, and then continue to evaluate kind of where we are. I know there's probably gonna have to be some conversation around that down the line, but I don't think now is the right time to entertain a rate increase.
I agree with that, not
Yeah.
because I'm just caring about it's the time.
Right,
It's time.
right.
Exactly.
Because I will say, I can understand the conversation of rate increase, of realistic one. I'm not sure this is it, but
So in terms of the board action item, that part is stricken, so action 2, 1 is fine, remove 2 from the actions.
And that way we can
Which
do this
is-
in stages.
Yes,
Yeah, because I mean, I think we would need to have more conversation about it.
yes,
and we can still continue to work on some of those things, like ULID or whatever, to help
Most
protect the rest of the
definitely.
county. Because, they're not gonna be happy either, so we need to find a way to keep that burden off of the rest of the county if we can. If those property owners in that development can pay a part of it, it'd be helpful.
all
Cool.
right. Thank you, commissioners.
So can you chart out kind of the immediate next steps
Yes.
for us on
Yes,
this?
yep.
Right now or
So we'll-
later?
Immediately.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was saying.
I'm gonna have, well, you know,
Right.
for our viewers at home.
Yes, for our viewers at home. So next steps, commissioners, well, the first question is, would you like this to remain on the action agenda tomorrow?
Just the number one, just.
Number one on the action agenda
Right.
tomorrow, okay. All right, so that will be the case, and we will bring that forward for execution. And we will come back at a later date to talk about refining the other action items that are recommended for financial controls. We will also follow up on identifying other ways to recapture partnership.
I'm sure the whole county will be happy about that if we find that right.
Yes, and then the other thing that I want to do is work, Richard and Jennifer and our finance group, take a look at what the debt repayment schedule actually looks like, because Gordon in the FCS group memo laid that out quite nicely. How many ERUs really are we needing to add to cover this additional debt? What does the debt repayment schedule look like? So that commissioners have good facts in front of them about that process. And to answer your question, Commissioner Netherland, about do we have it to make that additional debt repayment? Where's that coming from?
Well, I know we don't have it, it has to come from somewhere.
Right.
We're backwards in the,
Right. And what else? What else am I missing, Richard?
My head's spinning. I don't know.
Jennifer, what am I missing?
The only thing I can think of is that we probably will not need a bridge loan, but we need to map that out.
Cash
as well.
flow, yes.
Yeah, the cash flow, and we can use the .09 and the REIT funds, assuming that we have them available. You know, with COVID, we don't know what's gonna happen with that. So, yeah, assuming that we have those funds available, we can, you know, use that money up front to pay out the, what's going to be reimbursed by the Public Works Board on this loan. So, and that'll get us kind of started so that we have something to work with instead of getting a bridge loan. So,
Okay.
that's one thing I'll look
I
at.
did, but I can't. This one took everything I had left in it, so I'll call you. It's some citizen stuff and I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've had a lot of citizen stuff lately. Because even though we're talking about COVID, they're talking about everything else. And I'm not complaining, folks. I'm just telling you, that's the way it works.
How about with Lake Limerick and the Navy? Any updates?
Yes, so we've been definitely having conversations
Okay, good.
all the way around and planning, I think in the near future, to have a meeting with all parties.
Okay,
Yes.
right on.
Can you, one thing I do remember is they've had people talking about the lines going up out of Belfair. It's not our issue, but could you reach out to the state about when they're gonna reline that highway and Highway 3 out of Belfair to Birmingham?
Striking, so.
Oh, okay, yes, I was gonna say, that's what kind of line, yes,
I was thinking power lines.
right.
No, I just was, I know what you mean.
Uh-huh.
So,
Did
one
the
other.
boat go away, speaking of?
Oh, I don't know, I haven't
No.
been through there yet.
The boat's
On
still
101.
there?
It was here last
Okay.
week.
Alrighty,
So with our, back to the solid waste side, flow control, I've heard maybe there have been some requests to push that back or some communications that are happening.
We've had some recent communications, yeah. They're kind of, Lakes County Coverage is kind of scrambling to get all the resources they need.
Mhm.
Although we've been kind of reminding them
Yeah,
that, we have been reminding them on a regular basis that this is coming, that I haven't heard anything back from Kitsap County. I resent that stuff, but,
Get on me later, I'll call.
okay.
Just remind me, give me a call later.
Okay, I will. So, yeah, they're scrambling a little bit, and I mean, I understand, as it is. I'll show you
Do
something.
you feel it's a true issue or burden that they need at that time?
What's that, please?
Do you feel that their request for a little extra time, do you think that's true, legitimate, and that we should be?
It sure could be. This is, I'll give you this, this is, I'll give you all one. Is basically,
Here you go.
It's your Rorschach for the morning.
Yeah.
What do you see in that?
I know, that's like, I threw it together
Is this
very last
Is this the
minute.
Dow? Is this the Dow over the past, couple of weeks since it's the stock market?
No, that is,
Wait,
that is,
there's little tiny words on the very, very top.
I know.
Daily average week.
There you go. Still don't know what it is, right? That is,
That almost helped.
how many containers go out every day on average, every week at the solid waste department? That's how many ship out. And you can see right up until that red line marks when the World Health Organization issued the international COVID virus alert. And you can see what happened to our flow of solid waste as it comes in.
Wow.
Why that drop? I mean, like.
Yeah, that's.
Why would people want to hold on to their waste?
You know, I don't, it may have been, there may have been
No,
a spike when they rushed to
no,
get rid of it, and
construction.
then they don't have any.
Construction and all those
Construction
other
debris.
projects probably stuff. And now, this isn't home, this is all commercial waste, right?
That is all waste.
That's all waste?
That's all
We had
waste.
enough commercial going on to account for that,
Wow.
or not going on.
Yeah, you can see, it's like the next day, it dropped. No.
So, does
And that's
this,
back up.
does this,
So it's not here right now?
No, this is just, there's no value for that day yet.
Right.
This is basically the very first quarter of the year, so halfway through, we were nice and steady.
That's it.
And it gets a
Aw,
little erratic and it's on its way up.
Right.
Okay, all right, so that's what scared me, was the significant drop.
Yeah.
The world has.
Just so you know, we're looking at it,
I thought
as
this
you're
was-
showing us a graph, and this is what happened.
I thought you
Oh,
were
yeah,
saying.
no,
thought you were
that's
saying
what's
this is where we
yet
are
to
now.
happen.
Okay, then yeah, that
Yeah,
could easily be
it's
commercial.
dead.
I was gonna say, 'cause this doesn't really do a good job of firming their position.
No, that's dead.
They should have plenty of capacity.
Well, and we'll find, so it's real hard, ever since that,
Next time you bring us a graph, have somebody else make it for you. Because that one was scary.
This was obviously hot off the press.
Yeah, or stop at that point at least. That's fine.
That makes more sense though.
Yeah.
now you know.
Yeah.
I know, if I'd have been able to get dates in there.
Well, you know what's funny is, I'm also looking at it from another perspective. You can tell, in talking to some of our friends, growth in communities and when communities are contracting, you can tell by the amount of their solid waste. So when I'm looking at that first thing that came to my mind is, oh, no,
Whoa.
what happened? So,
Where they put.
Good, though, that's what's
Yeah.
supposed to, like, what happened, something happened there.
yeah, but not with a line that goes to zero, man.
It's not,
Thank
this
you,
is not
Doug.
an EKG.
It almost felt like it.
Where is,
It did feel like it.
I think that they'll be able to meet the needs. They kind of started adding it up, that they know that we sent this up to Kitsap County. They haven't talked to them either, but they know, so I think they assume that they're gonna be turned away
Yeah.
at Kitsap County,
And so that's supposed to take effect April 1?
April 1, yeah.
And have they asked for,
They haven't asked for any relief from that date
Okay.
at
No
all.
extension.
well, then
That's not our issue.
Yeah, yeah, okay. That's what I guess I was getting at, is have they asked for an extension?
And I thought that's why you were bringing it up, because they were asking for them.
No, I just say it's hard to
Just-
tell
you're just warning us.
what's happening with, our normal flows are not normal. But did we have this on there?
No.
Okay.
You know what's interesting, is I know this looks really, really bad,
So that-
but I used to do my own math on it because I could never get, and we were a lot worse.
That's easier.
So
Yeah.
they're catching up to us.
Yeah.
8 years ago, no, 8 years ago, now some of them, we are still almost 3-1, but 8 years ago, we were 3-1 above everybody.
And Bremerton's got another rate increase coming, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not, I didn't have.
It
the
doesn't
rate
take that
increase.
into account.
It's close enough, at least you gave us an actual, real,
Yeah.
Right.
apples to apples, it's, I appreciate that a lot. At least now I have some new updated numbers I can look at.
Yeah.
Jeff Carey will be happy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll be happy, but it'd be something that I'm sure he'd appreciate seeing.
Oh, and I guess I should let you know,
Well, speaking of that, I'm sorry to do this. Jeff Carey has come and spoke to us, and I think we brought it up before, but I know you're getting into place your financial people more.
Yep.
But he would really like it, I guess so would I, because now that he brought it up, I'm looking at it again more, and I'd like to break it out a little bit further on the financials. Into the
Absolutely.
please.
I spoke with Jeff
Good.
at length about that, that I think we all have the same goals
Yeah.
in that regard, and I
Mhm.
know that Richard and before Mary Lee left, they were digging into exactly that as
Yeah,
well,
good.
so.